Good morning, enamel friends. Welcome to part 3 of our opalescent tutorial. Remember, in the first part, we made opalescent sample strips. In the second part, which was a two-parter, we made our little human eyeballs. And in this third part, we are going to be making some fantasy dragon eyeballs. So, without further ado, let's get started. One quick thing before we actually get started. Quick reminder that if you haven't already, we are going to be doing a drawing for some prizes, some sample strips, maybe something else. We'll figure it out. But the date for that is May 1st, 2023. So you have until then, if you haven't, to send me an email letting me know that you would like to be included in the drawing. And that will, I'll give all the details. We're going to be doing the drawing live on my Twitch. There it is. We're going to do it live on my Twitch stream on May 1st at noon Eastern Standard Time. You don't have to be present to win because when you email me, you are going to send me your mailing address and I'll have your email. And so if you win, I promise I will let you know. And we're going to be giving away some fun prizes. So please let me know. And all right, back to the video. Here are the 3 color samples that I made for our dragon eyeballs. And I've given it a lot of thought as to how on earth we're going to incorporate the opalescence into these. And we're going to be doing them in a very light and subtle way because I'm not sure how they're going to look. So I might even, I'm going to make all 3 of these because I love them so much. And we're going to be incorporating mostly, we're going to be, although I've already decided I've got some gold here, we're going to be layering the T8 because this is the opalescent that I bet most, if not all of you, are going to have access to. And we're going to layer it over the interior portion of the eye and see how it works. I'm hoping it's not going to be too white. That's what we're going to be looking for. But remember, these are experimentations. And so that being said, this is going to be our main avenue of opalescent. And if that's all you can find opalescent wise, that is great. In addition to this one that's going to take place, I have chosen 2 opalescent, and these are worth a little bit more challenging. These are both Old Thompson opalescents. This is the 849 Hunter Green opalescent, which we're going to try out in his little scaled skin underneath his eyeball here. And then I've got a little bit of this blue. This is also an Old Thompson 855 turquoise opal, which we're going to try out as well to see how that looks. And not sure yet if I'm going to be doing a kit for this because quite frankly, I don't have a ton of either of these colors. So if I do a kit, it will be kind of a limited quantity kit as far as these 2 colors go. And I have selected all the other colors, which I think are really going to be really fun and exciting. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how all these colors come out. And I will definitely have, although we're not going to get into the colors in this video, I'll have this printable ready. It'll be in the description of the video if you want to start pulling the colors that you're going to want for this project. I'll have it all typed up so it'll be easy to discover. So I'm really looking forward to some of these kind of fun, vivid colors because you know how much I love bright colors. So we're going to get started actually by doing the wires first. We'll set these colors aside for now. And we're also going to set our colored eyeballs out of the way. And I've got these black and white printables. And ultimately, I think I'm going to go I want a little bit more area around the eyeball for color. So I'm probably going to end up making them a little bit bigger. That's not really going to impact the size of the wires that we're making because we're going to have the same size. But I might make slightly larger circles when we're punching out the silver. So to start out with, we're just going to get started. Let's actually make some circles that are that size. I guess it's this one. It's a 1-inch circle. And I'm making We're just going to make one for now. But if you're going to make all 3, that's great. You'll just do this 3 times. I've got that. Got a little bit of double stick tape to put my wires down. There we go. We'll scooch you over. And as far as the wires go, I make my own cloisonne wires. I've got a whole little baggie of them here. And I started with 26 gauge round fine silver wire, and I ran it through a rolling mill. And obviously we don't need this many. And 26 gauge is 0.4 millimeters. So slightly less than half a millimeter to start. And you can see we want a fairly, this is the, I'm going to say that the height of this is about 0.8 millimeters. 0.9 would be fine too. So we want enough height that we can get our coat, our barrier coat, to protect against the silver. And I think I didn't need to pull all of those out. We'll put them back in the baggie in a moment. And we'll get started. You could absolutely use gold wires for this, but I don't think it's necessary. I know that a lot of these opalescents, and especially some of the colors we're using, are reactive to silver, but I'm okay with that. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue because I think the colors are nice and vibrant, and so I'm not going to give it a second thought. I like to break them into shorter lengths to get started. And I have 2 things. I've got my nice clippers, my favorite. I love these Swanstrom clippers. Really nice. They're super comfortable. Love them. And then I've got, I'm not sure if I'm going to need this, but probably for this little area right here, a pair of round nose pliers. And then a selection of round things. So let us actually get started with the exterior. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to make, well, I guess I will make this shape right here. We're going to get started with the actual shape of the eyeball first. So, and remember, because we made this wire in the rolling mill, it's very springy. See how it holds its shape really well, and then it's so, but when we do it, it springs out. So whatever size you want to make it, you're going to need to make it a lot smaller to account for the springiness. And if you've purchased your wire and it is annealed, it's going to react a lot differently. It's going to be harder to get, if it's annealed wire, it's going to be harder to get these really smooth shapes. It's going to want to be a bit kinky. But either way, you know, there's challenges with each way that you do it, and I just prefer the unannealed wire just because I like how springy it is. We're going to start with the actual eyeball shape, and I'm going to see if I can make it out of one single. You could absolutely make it in 2 pieces. You've got this slightly less, the straighter one and the slightly more curved one, but you know what? I'm going to go for it and see if I can make it as one solid object. And you'll notice we have one more straightaway and one slightly less. So we're going to start with a slightly bigger circle, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap this around, and we're going for the slightly straighter version. I'm going to wrap it around twice, just like that. Give it a nice tug, and then see how it relaxes. And I'm going to have a look. I'm going to definitely trim it just a little bit so we don't have so much. And I'm just going to see where we are. I think that's pretty good. I don't hate that. And then what I want is a little bit more. So I'm going to grab a smaller one. This was the one that I started with, and this one is just a little bit smaller because I want this portion of it to be a little bit more. So I'm going to wrap this around again. This is kind of a more advanced maneuver. Feel free to make this as 2 separate pieces, and I'm just going to let it go. So we have this kind of crazy shape, and I'm going to just start shaping it just like that. And I'm going to hold it just about, I want to have a little extra so I can trim it. We're going to flick this up just to straighten it out a little bit. And I'm just going to gently with my finger give it a little bend. And I'm going to open it up a little bit. See where we're going with this shape. And there's no reason to make this as one. There we go. I'm going to give it a little trim and then we'll fuss with it. A little bit of a trim. And it's just nice having it as one solid shape. So I'm going to straighten out this top bit. Just like that. Use my tweezers to just straighten it a little bit. That's good. Give it a little trim right there. I'm feeling good about it. And then I'm going to loosen this up a little bit. See, I'm just kind of flicking it open. There we go. That's actually pretty good. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of a close, like a jump ring. Just twist it a little bit so that those two meet up. That's good. That's a nice shape right there. So we'll go ahead and put that on our circle, just like that. And now we're going to do this interior, and I'm going to do that as one piece as well. So let's get some wire, get some more wire. Here we have some more wire, and it's going to be the same thing. I think, let's see. It's always a matter of just finding the right size thing to mandrel to wrap it around. I'm going to just, before I do anything, see how I just kind of let it fall. I don't mess with it too much. And I'm just going to make sure that this curve matches the eyeball. And I like it. I think that'll work just fine. Maybe just open it up just a little bit. And what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to pinch it and then with one finger fold it over just like that. So it's like a little fish color, fish shape, not color. And I'm just going to, I don't mind it overlapping just a little bit. There we go. And then I will trim it. Trim it. And you can decide if you want it to be a little bit open on the top, which I have it drawn just like that. So we've got our sweet, wait, hold on, this way. And we just set that right in there. Just like that, we've got our sweet little eyeball. Now, I do have a little bit of kind of like a tear duct right here. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm just going to do that as one little kind of a U shape. And we'll start with something, we'll start with kind of a big round U, kind of like that. And then I'm going to get my slightly smaller round nose pliers. These are a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to pinch that end and with my fingers kind of make a little tear duct shape. This is all exploratory here. I'm just going to hold it up against that. I'm going to trim it and then shape it a little bit with my tweezers. I've got my 3 eyeballs all done, and you can see that I went a little bit off with the exterior shapes. I kind of played around a little bit with it. They're not all exactly the same. As long as you have your main eyeball shape and this little iris, pupil, I don't know what that's called, you know, everything else is just going to be kind of gravy and more, it's allowed to be impressionistic. So our wires are done, so we're going to set those aside and get started on our bases. I went ahead and punched out some circles out of some 22 gauge fine silver sheet. 22 gauge is 0.644 millimeters, but up or down a little bit isn't going to make that much of a difference. So whatever you have. And I did make them a little bit bigger. I wanted a little bit more wiggle room. So, I mean, the original drawing was 1 inch, or what is that, about 26 millimeters, and I upped it to 1¼ inch circles, which is about 32 millimeters. I wanted a little bit of extra space around the eye, but you can make it smaller or larger as the case may be. And since our last video, I did get a new toy. I got, because, you know, I hate borrowing. I can't believe there was a tool I didn't have. And so I bought myself one of these sweet, I bought it from Conteti, and it included, it's really, I feel like the quality is pretty darn good. It has all these different sizes, and it also includes every size punch or whatever these things are called, and it also includes the wooden base to stick them all in, and it was $120 USD, which in my mind is a pretty good deal. So we are going to use the largest one in there. Where are you? Here you are, Solo. And the one that fits in there. And I did go ahead and make a tester before, just to make sure I was going to like it before I committed. And you can see it's not as domed. It's not a semicircle the way that the eyeballs were. It's a little bit more of a shallow because it's a little larger. It's going to be a brooch. And I think that it just lends itself to the design a little bit better. But again, you can make it as little or as much as you like. And I got a little bit of scratches on here when I was punching them out, but it doesn't matter because we're going to be doing some fun textured foils, so it doesn't matter. But if you were planning on not doing foils, you probably would want to take a moment before or after you domed it to get rid of those scratches with some very fine sandpaper. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm probably going to have to lift this up so I don't bang my phone. I'm going to have, you know what? What if there we go. There we go. Straight in. Just like that. Swivel it around. This is the 48 millimeter size dapping punch. There we go. So we've got a nice shape. Not too much, not too little, just right. Gonna go do the other one and we will move forward. Before we start with the counter enamel and all the enameling on here, I want to go ahead and take a moment and get our silver foil, our textured silver foil ready to go. So once we actually start with the enameling, we can just kind of move forward. And I've got my little black and white printables, and I'm using this extra thick, this is 10 microns thick silver foil, and you can purchase this from enamelartsupply.com. It's really thick. It takes the texture really well. And we're going to do two kinds of texture for our little guys. On the interior of the eyeball, we're going to do a hand done, but on the silver foil texture. And then we're going to do some other miscellaneous textures for the skin. And I've got a couple options for that, but we're going to start with the eyeballs. And if you don't have a rolling mill or you can't make textured foil, you can, you can make any kind of texture you want on the silver just using a kind of a blunt or a sharp object, or you could even just scribe your texture directly on your silver, and you would do that now. Play around with a little scrap before you commit to this. But we're going to be, I just love how sparkly the foils are. So, and we want this to be extra kind of luxurious. So I wonder if I can cut all three out at the same time. Let's find out. I'm going to get this one right here. Like this. And to do that, I'm going to get 3 pieces of silver, and I'm going to put a little slip of paper in between them so they don't stick together. I'm not sure. We'll see if this works, and I'm going to fold this over just like that because we're just going for a piece of foil that is this shape, like here. So, and I'm going to, you could definitely, because this stuff isn't inexpensive, you probably would like to maybe measure it, unlike what I'm doing, which is just getting 3 pieces, which so there's going to be a little bit of waste on my end. There we go. We should have 3 eyeballs. 1, 2, 3. We're going to do a little hand texture on this piece of silver foil. And the first step is, see how there's a little bit of texture already, kind of like a soft mottled texture? I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. I want it to be extra, extra shiny. And you can use any kind of a burnishing tool. I have this agate burnisher that finally, I've had it for so long and I very rarely use it. I finally have a use for it. And I'm just going to, I've got a piece of little bit of just plastic that I've cut out. You could certainly do it on paper. And I'm just going to gently, oops, burnish the silver so it's a little bit shiny. And it's going to curl up a little bit. And we are going to end up annealing it before we put it on, unless I mess it up so much that the first one, the tester one went great. So we're going to just gently flip it over. It's being a little, just gently. It's probably because I'm trying to go too fast. Just gently burnish that out to make it a little bit shinier. There we go. And then I'm going to set it on our dragon, just so we can see where the center is going to be. Here's our eyeball. Oops. Very thin, just like that. And I'm just going to use this is not too sharp or else it'll cut it. This, I tried, it just kind of tore it, so it's a little too sharp. So you want something with a slightly more blunt end. And I'm just going to mark where the center is so I know kind of where that eyeball starts. And this is going to be black, so we're not really going to see the texture right on the center. And so I'm going to just gently start making lines that go. And so we have this, and I'm going to let it be curled up. We're going to anneal it before we put it on because we want to uncurl it a little bit. But until then, we're just going to set it aside for now. And when we get the kiln up to temperature, we'll pop these little babies in to anneal them, which will uncurl them a little bit, and they'll stick better. So I'm going to do that with the second one, and we're going to do, I'll do that off camera so you get the idea. And we need to do a texture for our dragon skin. And I'm going to do 3 different options. I've got these 3 different texture plates that I thought might be interesting. This one actually looks like, and these are all from, it used to be metalliferous.com, but if you do a Google search for metalliferous, don't even worry about how it's spelled. Google will know what you're talking about. You'll find the company that acquired them, and they're still selling these texture sheets. And this one actually looks like scales. Not so great because they're all very uniform, going in the same direction. And, so we'll see how those look. And then I have kind of this interesting mottled texture, which I think will be nice. And then this one is a little bit more geometric. I just want to see how it looks. So I'm going to do one of each. And I'm going to do, I have a separate video about how to add your texture, but just remember, you do need a little rolling mill. And if you want the shiniest texture possible, you're going to, I just save the plastic bags whenever I can. And instead of sandwiching it between paper, I'll put a piece of this plastic over, which will make it extra, extra smooth. So I'll cut a piece of the plastic. I'll cut a piece of the foil. Just like that, set that on the texture. Put the piece of plastic over and run that through the rolling mill. I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Here are the textured silver foils. I actually think this one is probably going to be the best contender since it actually looks like dragon skin. But I'm going to try all 3 of these, and I'm going to cut out this exterior shape, I'm going to do it in 2 pieces, and I'm going to leave, remember our pieces are bigger than this, so I'm going to make them a lot bigger to make sure they can hang off the sides and we don't get any exposed silver. I made myself a slightly larger circle, so that's the size of my piece of silver, and I'm going to fold it over just like this. And because I'll start with the non-directional one, I'll have to decide which way that other piece is going to go. And I'm just going to slide you in. And I'm going to start just by making the circle. If it hangs off the edge, it doesn't matter. I'd rather have a little extra that I have to trim off later than not enough. So I'm just going to start with a piece that hugs the eyeball. There's one, and then, yeah, we'll trim this circle first, about just like that. And then I'm going to cut this eye out. Luckily, there's a little bit of black. There we go. So we have this and this, and then our eyeball, which we're going to anneal, will go in the center. So that's how it's going to be. I'm going to go ahead and make those other 2, and then we will get started with some actual enameling. We are ready to, I've got all of the silver foil cut and set aside for now. We're going to be talking about what we're going to use for our counter enamel. And we're going to be making settings for these, so it doesn't matter whatsoever what you use for your counter enamel visually, because we're not going to see it. We're going to be turning these into brooches, and so you're not going to see the back. That being said, I have had some problems with the fine silver. This one's not quite as domed as the eyeballs, but it's pretty domed. And I've had issues in the past because normally I use the grisaille unleaded as a back, but it's a very soft enamel, and we're going to be using the Sawyer Flux as our base coat, and it's a very hard enamel. And I've noticed that, and it's usually not a problem with Chanlevé, just with the cloisonné pieces, tend to get, if you use the soft on the bottom and the hard on the top, you get a little bit of crackling around the edges because I think there's just a little bit of torquing happening. So that being said, you can never go wrong with the same thing you put on the front is what you're putting on the back because it's the same. So we're going to go ahead and use number 3 Sawyer Flux for silver on the back as our counter enamel. Enough said. We're going to do 2 coats on the back. So let's get started. I've got some clear fire, and you can see I've got one tiny dollop right here, drop of Dawn dishwashing detergent that I put in there. I'm just going to mix that in, and that's going to prevent beading. It'll make sure we get a nice even coat on our silver. So let's do this. And remember, the trivet that you sift on is not the trivet you're putting into the kiln. I've got 3 separate clean trivets ready to go for that. I've got a nice clean sifter. Let's get everything ready. Oops, let's get this over here. And we're just going to paint this on, nice even coat. And yes, probably could have sanded this. Not going to. We'll see how that turns out. It should be fine. It wouldn't hurt to sand. In fact, maybe I'll sand the other 2. That's fine. We're going to do 2 coats. Set that over there. We'll see if these pop off. You know what? I'm not going to sand because I'm feeling lazy, but best practice would be to sand. We're not going to see it. Oh, see, I wasn't all that even. There we go. Gonna put these under the heat lamp to dry very thoroughly. I've got my kiln coming up to temperature. I've set it for, we're not doing the low temperature just yet. Until we get to those opals, I'm sticking with, right now, because these are kind of a harder enamel, I've got it set to 1430 Fahrenheit, 776 Celsius. And as soon as it comes up to temperature, these should be dry. I'm gonna go ahead and fire these about a minute and a half until it is fired and glossy, and we'll bring it back and we're going to do a second coat exactly the same. Kind of at the same time, I want to go ahead and anneal our pieces of silver foil that we did. See how curled up these are? And I might as well anneal these while we're at it. And I've got the kiln set to 1430 Fahrenheit, 776. And what I have here is, this is a totally clean. I've never ever fired anything with glass on it. You can see there's no glass on this metal plate. This is a piece of steel that I purchased and I just folded it down. And I'm going to use this to anneal my silver foil. And all I'm going to do, because if you have any glass on here, guess what's going to happen? The silver is going to stick and glue itself to the steel base, which I know you don't want. And I'm just going to set these like this. And I'm going to put them in as soon as the temperature is up. Let's see if we can make enough room. As soon as the temperature is up, I'm going to just put these in for a minute and a half or 2 minutes. And when they come out, they'll be really soft and malleable. And you just have to be careful when you're putting it in that they don't fly around on the inside of the kiln. That is really the only danger here. Let's see if we can fit all of these on there. Just like that. I'm going to rearrange these just a little bit so that one's not hanging off the edge. But yes, I'm going to put these in the kiln just like that for just a minute or two, and that will anneal them. You never want to try to anneal silver foil with a torch, because trust me, it never goes well. So we'll be back with that being fired and this being annealed and get the second coat on there. These are fresh out of the kiln. We have 2 coats of counter enamel on the reverses of these. And now it's time to think about what's happening on the front. And the first thing that's going to be happening is a nice coat of the number 3 flux. And again, if you're not going to be using the foils, this would be a good time to add your texture or clean up, make this a little bit shinier, whatever you want to do. Now would be the time to do that. But we're going to be using foils, so I'm just going to wipe it. I see I got my fingerprints all over it. And a nice light but even coat. Just like that. Gonna let these cool. We're gonna fire them, and then we're going to add our silver foil next. We've got a nice coat of clear enamel on the tops of these, and if they are stuck to the trivets, just let them stay stuck. They'll just be that much more stable. And I did anneal all of these little guys so they're nice and soft and no one's stuck to this as far as I know. And so we're going to first off glue down our foil. And I'm going to start with one of these. It should be nice and soft. See how it holds its shape now? And I'm going to kind of figure out, we'll start with this one. It's like a puzzle. I don't remember. There we go. This one goes just like that. So we'll start certainly with the centerpiece, and we're just going to use the same glue. Just right in the center there. It doesn't have to be pressed down all the way. Just have it positioned in the right location. And luckily, we're going to have a lot of shading around there, so I'm not worried about there being a little gap between these pieces of fine silver. Just going to set it down just like that. And I don't mind things hanging over the edge. Well, we'll see about that. Just should be good. Now, see how it's sticking up? It's perfectly fine. I'm going to let this dry really, really well, because if there's any moisture in here and we put this in the kiln, the moisture will evaporate and either shift this foil or make the foil floof off and end up maybe on the floor of your kiln. So we'll let this dry. I'm going to go ahead and glue all those other two pieces down, and we're going to fire it in the kiln when it's dry, the same temperature, 1350 Fahrenheit, 776 Celsius. And then when it's cool, we'll gently press everything down, maybe trim the edges, fold them over. We'll do that next. I'm going to do that and we will be right back. These are out of the kiln and they're cool. And now I'm ready to, they're still stuck to the trivet, which is good. But see, we're going to very carefully use our fingers to press down these foils. And I'm going to start in the center because I don't want to have there be any air pockets. There we go. Just pressing it down, and then when I get to the edge, anything that's overhanging, I'm just going to tuck it under, just like this. It's actually very satisfying. I'll worry about that. I don't mind. I'd rather have it be stuck to the trivet for now. There we go. So you can see our foil is pretty much stuck down. Let me get my finger right in there. There we go. Have a little bit of exposed silver there, but that is fine. So we've got that. And then I'm going to do the same thing for these little guys. Start in the middle. Oop, this one's off. If it comes off, it's actually probably easier to do it. Just like that. And then just gently fold it over. Or you could trim it. It's just whichever you want. Folding over will be good. So we've got that one, and then I'll do this other one. There we go. Now we need to put a nice coat of flux over the whole thing. So we're going to bring our sifter back. We're still using the same clear. And actually, I'll pull it off. And we just want a nice, even coat. Again, we'll let these dry really well, fire them, and we will be ready to glue our wires on next. The final step in this particular video is gluing on our sweet little wires. Are we stuck down? No, we're not stuck down, but that's fine. I've mixed up a little bit of glue here, and you could definitely use, they're simple enough that you could probably get away with using clear fire, but I do like to have, this is blue stick adhesive. It's a little bit stickier, dries a little faster. I've thinned it out about 50-50 with some distilled water just to make it less gloopy, and I am going to get my wires glued down one at a time. We'll start with this one. I like to dip my wires in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that eyeball positioned first. See if we can find it. It's hard to see. That first sifted coat is a bit nubbly, but that is fine. I can see where we are here. And I'm just going to get the eyeball glued down first and let it dry, and then backtrack and get the rest of our pieces glued into place when these are dry. Just go slow. Take it easy. Right this way. One wire at a time. I've got all of the wires glued on, with the exception of these tiny little dots, which are going to be the highlight in the eyeballs, because I'm going to put a layer of the black down first, and then I'm going to put that little dot on there because I kind of want to use a translucent white over that for the highlight. So we're going to save these dots and put them on after we've already put a layer of enamel on. So those we're going to set aside. We're going to let these dry really well. It's probably going to take, to be honest, it's the end of the day. I'm probably going to just let these dry overnight and fire them tomorrow when I get into the studio, just to make sure everything is bone dry. And yeah, and the only thing I have to say is sometimes this blue stick leaves a little bit of a brown residue. So when you pull it out of the kiln, you're going to fire it at the normal temperature, 1430, 776 Celsius. And if when you pull it out, it looks like there's still a little bit of brown residue where the glue was, go ahead and put it right back in the kiln and give it another minute. Just make sure you burn away all this glue, because if you don't and there's still a little bit of residue, sometimes it can kind of get locked in and add a little bit of discoloration. So that's what's going to happen. I'm probably going to do that off screen. You get the idea of what's happening. And thank you so much. It's going to be super exciting. We are going to get started on the color portion of these in the next video. It's going to be a fun video for everybody. So again, thank you so much for supporting me on my Vimeo channel. And don't forget, if you haven't signed up for the drawing, which will be on May 1st, send me an email with your name and your shipping address so I know where it's going. If you win, because, to be honest, I think there's only like 30 or 40 people in this thing so far. So you got some pretty good odds because I'm definitely giving away at least 5 things. So again, thank you so much and have a great week, everybody. Take care.